What should we do with the broke propeller? What should we do with the broke propeller? Don't look at me, I wasn't driving. Thank you, you're not helping. I don't even know why you bought this boat. You told me that you loved this boat. That was before you wrecked the boat. Well, now you've made it awkward.
Accidents don't just happen in sea shanties, so Progressive Boat Insurance has you covered. Take as little as 4 minutes to see what you can save at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Covered subject to policy terms and not available for all boats or in all situations.
Back in 2003, after I had heard the Bigfoot scream over there, moved to Florida, I moved back, and a girlfriend at the time wanted to go over there because one of her friends was camping. So again, we went over there about 10:30 at night. We couldn't find them. We decided to walk back the same trail, basically right past where the screams were. And we were within 100 yards from it anyway. And something growled, just, I don't know, 10, 15 foot in the bushes to our left. And we took a couple more steps. And she's like, "Did you hear that?" I was like, "I was hoping you didn't hear that. Let's just keep walking." And I shine my flashlight up the trail, and my little Basenji, little hunting dog, had stopped and looked back at us. And she's pretty feisty. So I was just like, keep going. Please just do not come and confront this, whatever just growled like that, you know? So I just chalked that up as spooky. So anyway, let me get back to my lab puppy. I take him over there, and a buddy of mine had found an Indian artifact in the creek. And I thought, well, I'm going to find something. So I never had went up this little side creek on Paddle Creek in broad daylight like today, maybe in the middle of the spring or summer. My dog's jumping around, and I thought, it's been 10 years or so since I dug into BFRO. As far as, I dug into it closer to that time, but I never had went out and actually actively tried to look for a Bigfoot or any signs or anything. I thought, well, I'm going to do a wood knock. So I got a pretty good stick, hit it against a beech tree, and immediately one answered back a lot harder and a lot louder and pretty close, within a couple 100 feet. And I just grabbed the dog and left. I was like, no, that was too coincidental there. And I'm out here by myself. And I've read too many reports now to keep on messing around with this thing. It was just too much. So not much happened after that up until around the end of 2017. I was on Facebook and just saw a random person, a friend of a friend, had posted what appeared to be a Bigfoot print. So I looked this guy up, and he just lives, a mile from me. So I hit him up on Messenger and was like, "What's up with that print?" He's like, "Well, I walk my dog, every morning, and we take the same little nature trail type thing. It's unofficial, but up in some woods that's protected. I say protected as Wildwood Park area in Ashland." And he's an author, and had written a book called "I Saw God." So I thought, okay, this guy's pretty religious. But I read the book; it has nothing to do with God. So one of his friends got hit by a car, so on and so forth. But anyway, so this dude seemed pretty credible. So, I hit him up. He never did say it was a Bigfoot, but he had several prints, and he had a pile of coyote bones, and he didn't really investigate that really well to see if it'd been gnawed on or which parts were missing or whatever. I just remember him sending me a picture of the footprints and where one foot slid kind of over like a little 1 foot knoll as it stepped on its foot, slid and made the toe impressions into the mud real good. So I thought, well, that's pretty neat. They're right on the outskirts of Ashland, the city limits. They're like right on the city limits. As long as there's a patch of woods, they're in it. So about that time is when I got a off-road vehicle. I got a Land Rover, and I thought, well, my buddy owns this off-road park. I'm gonna go cruise around at the off-road park. And it's a 7,000 acre park that's been protected, owned by the same family since the late 1800s, pretty much. Or that is, Armco, the steel mill, owned it. And once they were done mining resources out of that whole Rush area, we'll call it, they sold it off, and some of the lots got sold off along the state route, and then the woods are just undeveloped. There's no houses up there. So if anything were to live in those woods, there'd be no reason to go very far. Plenty of everything you need, some beaver, some deer, all kinds of, whatever small critter you want to eat.
I mean, you keep going back to the beaver. There must be something.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they'll eat just about anything. So I had just recently, found that guy's Bigfoot incident or whatever he was running into up at the edge of town. And here I was out in the woods, and I would only go out there in like the daytime or whatever, because I didn't really know the trails really well at the time. So it was about, let me see, the end of 2017, I decided it was like 12 o'clock at night in the middle of the week. And I just got the feeling it's like, I'm going to go out there at nighttime. I bet the place is creepy. And I know my way around enough. It's real not moderate, 75-degree evening or whatever. So I thought, okay, here we go. Well, if I'm going to go out there this late, I'm going to stay there all night, and I'm going to take a picture of the sun coming up on this pipeline so I can, look due east and get a good picture. So, I'm setting this pipeline clearing at about 700-foot elevation. And after about, I don't know, it's 4:30 in the morning now, and the light started to change a little bit. You could tell it's almost going to be morning here pretty soon. So I thought, I was starting to get bored now, and I'd already Facebooked and Instagrammed all I could. So I started listening to some music, and I just went ahead and asked the UFOs, like, hey, it's got the idea. It's like, where you all at? Ain't seen you in a while. This would be a great place to like show up, because there's nobody out here, and it's nice and clear. And I think I may have even said that out loud. So I'm sitting there, and I scroll through a couple songs, and then out of the corner of my left or my right eye, I see a light come out from behind the woods, and this is about 1,500 foot away. When it comes out, and I looked over, and it's like, I saw you. And then it went behind the pine tree, and then it came back out like, I'm caught, so I might as well come on out. So it came out into the clearing, and it just like stayed there. And I was staring at it going, okay, it's definitely not a drone. That's pretty good size. I'm going to say 15 to 20 foot tall. I don't know, but it was white, diamond shaped craft. Not triangle, but diamond shape, pointy on the top, pointy on the bottom, kind of roundish in the middle, or faceted. And it looked to be like white plexiglass with a bunch of LED multicolored lights behind it. That, like it wasn't radiating light, but it was putting off light. And it would drop about 80 feet, and then it'd go back up to its original position. Then it'd go up and back to its original position. Then it would kind of go over to like a 45-degree angle, and then it'd come back. And then it shot out. This is the part I think I left out the other day. It shot out like this laser beam of light that was kind of like a gas, like a aerosol, like a spacecraft would like adjust its coordinates with, just like a short burst of gaseous vapor, but like a little bit of light came out of it, and it shot towards to my right, just shot out towards the ground some. Oh, that's odd. I've never seen one do that. So I got out and started videotaping this thing with my camera. And of course, it looked like a star from far away. It was just useless video. But anyway, I videotaped it for, I think, 2 minutes. But that's back when Instagram would only let you put like 1 minute videos on there. It's before shorts came on. So it like deleted most of the movement and only picked up the, like 1 minute of this thing moving around. And then I went back to scroll through the original videos, and that I posted it on Instagram, but then the original video was gone. Like it was completely out of my picture, gone from my pictures. Because I had beforehand pictures, and then the sunrise pictures I took, and then a couple of pictures of my car and stuff in the morning sun. But other than that, the UFO video was gone off my phone. But I had already downloaded it to Instagram, so it is out there somewhere, which was odd. So I get back in my car and I'm reviewing this video, and I saw another flash of light in the woods about half that distance. We'll say 750 feet, and maybe not even that far. And I saw a flash of light and thought, okay, that was in the woods. That's the opposite direction from where that thing just went back into the pine trees. But lo and behold, here comes what looked like at the time. Now you got to imagine it's about 5 o'clock now, maybe 10 after, and like the sun is starting to make the sky look a little pink, and the red dirt that I'm on that's exposed is kind of glowing like a orange pink. So out of the woods from where that craft went into comes what looked to be, it was either 4 or 5 identical, what looked to be like bear cubs or a chow, like a full-size black chow, and they were all walking in a straight line. And it could have been juvenile Bigfoot walking. I'm not going to say what it was, but I was just like, got instantly terrified that I didn't have my firearm, because like I said, I'd only been out this place in the daytime, and I thought, man, I really never factored in bears or dogs, and we don't have a lot of bear. If we have bear, the Department of Natural Resources like release some somewhere or whatever, but they didn't release any in our park. Not till a couple of years later that they released 4 or 5 of them in the neighboring county, and they have trackers on them, and they can see they stay over towards Greenup County. But anyway, so these 5 black objects on all 4s went over to the flash of light, hung out there for a few minutes, and then walked straight back the same path they came from, back towards where that craft went in the woods. And I just chalked it up as odd, and they at least showed up when I asked them. So I was like, okay, there's something to this, So a couple months went by, and it became January of 2018. Again, I was in my garage about midnight. I was like, where you all at? Showed up that one time. Where you at? So,
you better be careful what you're asking for.
Right. Well, so I get up. I had been watching Netflix that night, fell asleep on the couch, and woke up about 30 minutes before I needed to take my stepdaughter to school by somebody going, Matt. And it was kind of a mind speak thing, like somebody yelled my name in my head, and I raised up, and it's like, all right. I went in there and looked in the bedroom. My wife's still asleep. It's like, did you just yell my name? She's like, why would I yell your name? So I went downstairs and I asked my stepdaughter, it's like, did you just yell my name? And I knew it wasn't either one of their voices. She's like, get out of here. I've only got 30 more minutes before I got to get up. All right. So I went back upstairs, like, what the hell? I looked out the front window, looked up at the sky. I was like, what in the world was that? So I couldn't go back to sleep. I went ahead and took her to school, came back home. It was about 9:30 or 10 o'clock in the morning. My buddy that sold us our house, and a realtor friend, was like, "Did anybody else see anything weird over the skies in Ashland this morning?" It's like, I sent him a private message. It's like, like what? And he sent me the 3 pictures he took. He was on Ashland Avenue looking towards, lo and behold, right above where I'd seen, or where that fella had spotted the Bigfoot. There was another road crossing up there in that same, in the same area where the footprint was, and the destroyed coyote, and this 1,500 foot wide UFO. And he's, like I said, he's a realtor. He knows, he's good at directions and sizes and stuff too. But anyway, he's sitting there staring at this thing, like 7:45 in the morning. He had just walked his dog around the block, and he notices that there's lights and a craft where there's not usually houses, like down his street. He was like, holy crap, that's like, that thing's 4 or 5 stories thick, has big old 3-story yellow glowing windows on the side of it. So anyway, he snaps 3 pictures of this thing, and his buddy comes up to the stop sign, comes down there to him. Now he's standing in the middle of the street. He's like, what are you doing? And he's like, look. And his buddy sticks his head out the window, and they're looking at this thing for a minute or so before he snaps those 3 pictures. And it just fades out. That guy takes off, and my buddy comes back in, makes that post. So I'm like, send me those pictures. So about where he said he thought it was located, we drew it out on from his point of reference on Google Earth. We drew straight lines out and then split them because you could see the width of the thing and like where the lines would go to, and we calculated it at about 1,500 foot, when that was his guess anyway, and the distance of how far it was. So anyway, that post blew up later on in the day. There was a lady over in Ohio that was exiting off of the Coal Grove exit. She said, I saw that too. She said, it looked like it was covering the whole city. Okay, that's odd. So there's one person that saw it. And then there was another lady that was taking her kids to school, and she lived way out in the middle of nowhere. So they had to leave a little bit early. And she said her kids saw a blue light in the sky that was real big above our town, just, about 30 minutes before that. And one of the kids was like, that's the Ironton Bridge, because, it has a bunch of lights on it and it glows purple. And the mom's like, that's not the bridge. That's wrong direction. That's over top the city. So anyway, we had a couple other verifications that, this thing existed, which I'm just blown away that it was over top of basically the high school, where there's, 400 kids showing up and their parents in the morning, and like nobody saw it. That is that we didn't hear nothing about it. So anyway, I told my wife, and she's like, she said, I've been woke up 2 nights in a row by something pecking on the window hard enough to where I went and looked out the window, and she sleeps like a rock. She's like, will you quit doing that stuff? Like quit asking him to show up and stuff. Yeah, sure. So.
So she's like kind of buying into the fact that maybe you have a mental connection to. Yeah. And then 6 months later in June, I'm like, hey, when we go to the beach, I'm gonna call one in. I'm doing it. It's like I got the feeling it's gonna be June. They're out and about. So here we are. I get sunburnt really bad on the first day. So the rest of my vacation, I'm drinking on the back porch in the shade. I cannot even have sunlight shine on me at all. Got my feet in a cooler and covered up with towels and stuff, and sitting there grilling. And there was a neat moon phase / star pattern, that only happens. So whatever, I don't remember exactly any of the statistics, but it was like Venus and Saturn and Mars were like really close to like this half moon or crescent moon shape. Anyway, so it's evening, about 8 o'clock in the evening at the beach, Myrtle Beach or Ocean Isle. And
she comes down to check on the hamburgers. Like, you burning the hamburgers? Like, no. Like, what are you doing? Calling in UFOs? I was like, well, I have kind of been looking at this one little star below the moon here, because I mean, it was like chrome, I mean, it's pretty bright. All you could see the moon over the ocean, and then it just seemed like it wasn't very far out through there. But anyway, she knelt down to set her beer down and stood back, and I was like, there it goes. And it just like went straight up, and she saw it. She turned around and saw it go up, and I was like, see? And she just got this real weird look on her face. She said, that was an airplane. I was like, have you ever seen an airplane just like beam me up, Scotty? Like, it's like, well, anyway, don't burn the hamburgers. And she went back inside, So I had told somebody about that on a Facebook page or whatever, and that's when they said something about CE5. I had no idea about Dr. Stephen Greer or that people could summon these things or anything until then. And I almost cried. I was like, God, that's like.
It's I shouldn't say it's funny, but I had already mentioned Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and that was almost like what Richard Dreyfuss's character and a couple of those other characters were going through. That they were just, it was in their heads. They were getting drawn somewhere, like they were being called, like they
sound of mashed potatoes.
Yeah, the mashed potatoes, and they're so. And
that
and the whole thing always has been that the government. I mean, this has been a school thought that the government used Hollywood to help desensitize us to what was coming.
Right.
Through, is there a coincidence that Chewbacca looks like Bigfoot? Probably not. Is there a coincidence that all these movies had grays as far as aliens, and then that's what people started reporting, seeing and stuff? I don't think so. I mean, and now the mental, I don't want to say mental telepathy, but there's got to be some sort of mental connection,
For sure. And I don't know if that's downloaded into you, or once you do make the mental connection, it's kind of like the hitchhiker thing that, that is common with the Bigfoot. It's like, Bigfoot followed me home. It's like, yeah, well, I mean, you've done it now, It's the same thing with the UFOs. So, I mean, that's back in 2003 when I had my first Bigfoot incident. I was like, man, the reason nobody can find these things is they're having help. This is either protected land on purpose, or aliens have something to do with it, or they're helping them out somewhat. And that's got me leading into, well, maybe if you were going to do an experiment as large as man and manipulate DNA one way or another, whenever back in history, whenever, you would want to kind of protect your base animal, which would be a Bigfoot. So I'm not going to get into Nephilim and all that. I really don't know a lot about all that, and how the Anunnaki, I can't. I mean, just go watch the thousands of hours of documentaries on the shit. You'll kind of see where I'm coming from. But I don't know where I heard this information, but it kind of makes sense. It's like there's 5 types of galactic civilizations. This is pretty important. Like, a class 1 civilization has finally made it to where they have complete control of Earth's energies. They don't need fossil fuels, and you can say that we've been at this point before if you want to get into pyramids or whatever. But let's just say before humans, let's say there was a hominid running around. Now, up to this point, I don't know how Bigfoot got here. Let's say he evolved naturally. He may have had some help. But anyway, Bigfoot as a whole became a class 1 civilization. Class 2 would be, not only can you harness all of Earth's or your primary planets' energies, but you have control and can harness your star, our sun, or like the surrounding planets. And then class 3 would be multiple solar systems or galaxies, and then so on and so forth. Class 4 would be multiple galaxies and nebulas, certain sectors. And then class 5 would be, I guess you're just pure energy, part of the quantum foam or whatever. You can just make shit up. And of course you get bored and want to like start the game, like start over at the lowest point, just to let stuff evolve again and create some humans.
At Lowe's, shop deals on top outdoor power equipment during SpringFest. Save now on the latest in cordless outdoor power with Ego, only at Lowe's. For a limited time only, get $50 off Ego's Touch Drive 21-inch self-propelled lawnmower. And save $20 on select Ego 15 and 16-inch string trimmers. Head to your local Lowe's or visit Lowe's.com and save on all things spring now. Valid through 4/12. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
What should we do with the broke propeller? What should we do with the broke propeller? Don't look at me, I wasn't driving. Thank you, you're not helping. I don't even know why you bought this boat. You told me that you loved this boat. That was before you wrecked the boat. Well, now you've made it awkward.
Accidents don't just happen in sea shanties, so Progressive Boat Insurance has you covered. Take as little as 4 minutes to see what you can save at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Covered subject to policy terms and not available for all boats or in all situations.
If you were a class 1 civilization and it seems like class 2 civilizations, let's say aliens, would probably try to make contact with you, you would think.
Yeah.
So let's say aliens came down and was like, hey, man, this is a pretty good top predator here. He's pretty handy. And we want to grow some hominids. So let's take some DNA from that. Let's put a little bit of our DNA in it, and we can start with the Neanderthal was way up on the list by the time we evolved that much, but the evolution of hominids, you can't just be like, let's make a human, presto, but there's one comes right out. You have to kind of let them evolve over time. So we'll say Bigfoot's the base, and then we've evolved into what we are now. But I believe wholeheartedly that Bigfoot are here to get us up to being a class 1 civilization. We're at class 0 right now. We're really destructive and stupid, and none of us are in tune with nature. I don't care how off grid you are, or what. Just you can't.
So actually, according to like this belief system, they're ahead of us.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I get you.
And that's why they can do whatever they want. And anything that's like, we'll say, 4th dimensional, like we're 3D, and we have total control and understanding of the first dimension and the second dimension, and we can even draw stuff in 2D, and we can make stuff look at 3D, and we can make a computer and like design this little city, and you can look at it in all 3D. But that's pretty much as our boundaries on what we can do. But if you're dimension 4, then you have control like that over the bottom 3 dimensions. So
essentially what you're proposing is that aliens have come to visit us, and they see us and they're like, God, these guys, we can't deal with humans. We've been looking at them and trying to figure them out, but we will deal with Bigfoot because he's evolved. That species has evolved to a higher level, in tune with like the planet and stuff than these guys.
Well, you could even say that aliens showed up and there was only Bigfoot and there was no other types of hominids.
And so we're the kind of
and depending on the aliens' agenda, would they grow hominids for whatever to fit their agenda? And then you can get into we were here to mine gold and all that stuff, from Anunnaki crap, whatever. You can add your own flair to it after that. But pretty much, the aliens want us to get there too. They want us to evolve into what they are. But we have to get out of the stage we are now, being destructive and stupid and warmongering and monotone.
Oh boy, let me tell you something. Whether we were evolving to another level or not, that would be nice to get out of that period,
For sure. Got to be drastic.
To become more enlightened, for sure. But I had, you'd kind of talked. I have never heard that kind of take on the different levels and stuff. But yeah. I'm going to tell you, nothing would surprise me.
Yeah.
I don't know how you could discount it. And you obviously have had a lifetime of experiences that, and you're not the first person that I've talked to that have had stuff happen that have happened since they were a kid. And a lot of times it's either a ghost or an alien encounter that has evolved as they got older into something that, we'd call cryptid stuff. Yep. And it's really strange to sit back and just wonder, okay, what is really going on with the people that experience this sort of stuff, and why did you guys get chosen to do this? And
right. There's people that are mind readers and people that future and so on and so forth. I just consider myself normal, and this stuff is thrown on me without going out and even looking for it, And I'm not even going to get into any of the paranormal stuff that's happened, but I did, after breaking all this stuff down into decades and stuff, I did think, well, all the paranormal stuff I had happen to me only happened in between the stages of all these other incidents. There was time periods where I had blank spots, and I'd live in the oldest house in Clearfield outside of Moorhead. Bam. Had first paranormal experiences there. Lived in the oldest house in Spring Valley up in Huntington recently for the past 18 months. And God bless, I could write a book on how crazy that place was, But just since my ex-wife and I finalized our divorce, I think in about a little over 18 months ago. And I moved in with a friend up in Huntington, and June was coming up. And I told her, I was like, expect to see some high UFO activity, because they like to come during major changes in either your life or something in, you can go down like the Mothman rabbit hole on, how he would come and then like bad stuff is going to happen after that or whatever. Kind of foresee the future with the happenings. But anyway, I'd lived with this girl for a couple of weeks, and I was like, yep, June 22nd, summer solstice, something's going to happen. Well, later on that evening, about 7:30, she steps out on the porch. I get on my motorcycle. I'm going to run down to the marathon station. And I get to the bottom of the hill, and lo and behold, there's the old orb floating over top of I-64. And whoever was driving on I-64 had to have seen this thing. There's no getting around it. It was barely 100 foot off of the bridge. I'm in the valley. The highway bridge is 200 foot above me. And then about 100 foot above that is this chrome orange ball. And I was like, I see you. And as soon as the thought went through my mind, it shot off at woods level and went towards, I guess that would be due east. And my stepdaughter, another person that had given me a hard time about UFOs and stuff, had recently moved up to Huntington, and she just happened to be exiting off of I-64 over by where Amazon warehouse is. And her boyfriend saw the same object at the exact same time come across the sky at low altitudes and shot straight up. And she said it seemed to have separated from something. And she said her quote was, "It shot into space." And it's like, see, I'm glad. And it was her birthday too. I'm glad you got to see that. So I made a post on Facebook. It's like, anybody else see anything weird just now? And the only 5 people that answered were like my 5 best buddies. They're like, yeah, man, I was in my office down here and I saw the thing cruising across the Ohio River coming right toward you. Like right, I could have drawn a straight line from where he saw it to where. And then another buddy of mine stepped outside of his house. He saw it. My roommate had stepped out on the porch and she's like, "Did you just see that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm glad." What did you see? I asked her first. And she described cruising across the back of the, just over in Westmoreland. Like, we lived up on a hill, and she saw it disappear behind the trees, which was about the time I made it to the bottom of the hill and was sitting at the red light or stop sign is where I saw it, but it had came to a complete stop at that point. So at this point, I had worked out at the off-road park for a year and a half, maybe at the 2-year mark. So we hung out a lot. We lived together, and she was an off-roader, a jeeper, Jeep, just out trail riding Jeeps and stuff. So anyway, we don't have much else to do in this area. So, and working at the off-road park, I've gained a lot of off-road type oriented friends, but most of my activity, I've probably got as much activity that's happened since I've worked there till now to do another podcast this long, just explaining the stuff that's happened out there. But I mean, it's after I'd worked there probably about a year, I decided to rent a little half-acre piece of property off the park. The guy who owns the park happens to own a ungodly amount of tens of thousands of acres just throughout eastern Kentucky and southern Ohio. So this is the protected mining land that is now the off-road park, and it also has a Marathon pipeline going through it, and it's the last pipeline that goes before it goes into the Marathon refinery. The last leg of its stretch from New Orleans, is at our refinery. So, besides the the orbs that fly around there, if you take their flight path, it matches up exactly where all my questionable Bigfoot activity happens. Whether it's a tree, I'm pretty, like I said, I'm pretty observant, and that's all I have to do is drive around these woods. So I get to know the trees pretty well. I watched the ice storm destroy a bunch of stuff, and then I've seen stuff get destroyed with no weather. And, I'll take those into account. I'll get out and check the direction that they're pointing. Is it near a game trail? Is it a break? Is it a bend? So on and so forth. Anyway, I'm mapping all that out, and I'll get back with you on all that. But I'm pretty sure that, like, let's say, the term, the saying, the government has the technology and they're just not releasing the technology. Well, I mean, this shit's been around since like the 40s or beforehand, I think 1952, they finally managed to control gravity in some way. And then after that, they didn't want to know anything else. They got that part. Science has went downhill since 1952. Like they got the answer. They don't give a shit about anything else. But I mean, if they were going to like siphon off some technology and try to make any money off of it, really the only people that would be able to afford the technology or that could make use of it is probably like the petroleum industry. And, petroleum's pretty important resource we got going around in these parts. So it would make sense that they would want to be protected or at least observed without adding so many man hours. So it seems like a petroleum company, we'll say like as large as Marathon, would have some kind of, they make chemicals for the military. So, I mean, they hold hands. So I just think that some of the orbs may or may not be some way to keep an eye on the pipeline without having people out there. I mean, that's one useful thing. That's one useful thing I could think of to use it for, just kind of like a
souped up drone.
Souped up drone, and it just, it's high tech, and you can do whatever it wants to.
Well, I mean, they always say that whatever technology we have as pedestrians, that the military and the research facilities, they're 20, 30, 40 years already ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we're just getting stuff. So if we've got drones like that, I could see where maybe some of those balls of light are actually just a drone in the future, or a futuristic type of observation device.
Right. And the reoccurring ones that come out through there, they fly over top of the Bigfoot hotspots, though, and not necessarily their flight path in over the pipeline per se. Once I've drawn it all out, it's like it kind of triangulates all the Bigfoot activity that I've discovered. And it's like it's almost they have flight paths the same as airplanes. It's predictable. My sister was camping with me out in the campgrounds of the off-road park, and she's like, "You seen any UFOs?" I was like, "Well, there's one that comes over this hillside, and it'll bob up and down, just float across through there real slow, and so then it'll like flash like an extra long flash bulb exposure, and then it'll go out." And then it'll keep cruising. Then it kind of like fades into disappear. Then it'll like come back into view and then like get real bright again. And I said it happened about 10:30 in the evening. So next day, 10:30, it's like, there it is. And she sees it. It's like, damn, that's pretty good. It's like, yep, they're pretty predictable, So that's just kind of shit that goes on in my world. So.
I'll tell you, Matthew, this, anybody who has listened to this whole episode I hope they've been taking notes to go back and do some research on some of the stuff and kind of get some more background on the different kind of experiences you've had, and do some investigation, because I think it's definitely worthy of digging into. I know we've talked, there's hardliners that say Bigfoot and UFOs, there's no woo, there's no connection. It's just a coincidence. And maybe it is, but maybe it's not, maybe there's a lot of validity to everything that you have thrown out there.
Right. And I've only told my Lake Vesuvius Bigfoot story one other place publicly, and it was on William Jevning's Creek Devil, episode 175. It's called Tri-State Bigfoot. And not until I was talking to Tom before the show started, not even the night before, that he said, leave out all the UFO stuff. I was like, I already had it all written down for it to make sense. So like this podcast, so I had to, it was still an hour long of just talking about some of the things that's happened at the park after the UFO thing. But I was going, a lot, like trying to make all make sense just by narrowing it down to that. And I didn't find out till then they were just total flesh and blood people. And he's been doing this for 40 years, 2-time witness, multiple book publisher or whatever, It's like, okay, well, he knows a lot, and he has Forrest on there, and she's a primatologist, anthropologist, and I think it's really neat to listen to their podcast to see how ape-like they are and their human characteristics, which gets me back to they're not human characteristics, they're Bigfoot characteristics, and we just act like them, I think, because we came from them, or, the 3% of them's human anyway. or 3% of their DNA is human. If you want to get into the Melba Ketchum Sasquatch Genome Project, you really need to dig into that. Watch her 2-hour presentation on how the peer review people screwed her out of publishing it. She got it published anyway, but they just bought the damn publishing company and published it. And then they caught slack over that. So anyway, yeah, I hope somebody gets something out of this, you know. And if anybody wants to come and do any research in the area, it's $120. Bring you a side-by-side or Jeep or a four-wheeler or your dirt bike. You're allowed to drive around on the 7,000-acre property. There's 150 mile plus worth of trails on the 7,000 acres. It stretches over like 9 miles in width, about 3 miles in thickness. And the park's divided into 2 halves. I live at the park. Like my backyard is, I can see the trails. So I've recently went from trail patrol to park development and trail maintenance and development. So that was just what I was good at anyway. I'm not real good at just going around telling people, it's like, hey, put your seatbelt on, don't drink and drive, park closes at 12. You know, I do a lot more by turning old logging roads into new trails and map them, and then we have that much more riding to do if you want to come out. But I've met a couple people locally. A guy that moved here from Montana recently, specifically to study Bigfoot in this area. He never has had anything happen. He's never I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think he works for Skype. So he just works from home. He's about 30 years old, just moved to this area. And that's what he does now. It's like he works and then he goes out hiking and like tries to hook up with people that are locals that have had, you know, sightings or happenings or whatever. And so him and another fella from the next county over, we all met up over at Lake Vesuvius, and I went out there and showed him the spot, and they were like, well, should we bring anything to bait? And one of the guys suggested they bring fish. So anyway, he brought 3 tilapia. And I was like, well, let's hang it up at this one spot, and then we'll walk out a little farther where I had my incident. And so we get there to hang up the fish, and there's a freshly dead doe laying 10 foot from the creek on its side with one puncture hole in the neck, and it looks as if something held it down because the way its fur was matted up on one side, and its front legs kicked so much that it dug a 1 foot hole with its legs by trying to dig. And this the blood hadn't even congealed, or whatever it's called. It hadn't even coagulated. That's the word I was looking for. It hadn't even coagulated yet. And if you were a hunter, you would never shoot something that was like a less than a yearling. Damn thing still had spots on it, I think, or probably. I mean, it was a real little deer in a national park. I doubt if anybody shot this thing in the neck, but we really couldn't figure out, you know, like how the wound got on its neck. And it was just real odd that it was almost like Bigfoot knew we were going to come and bait them by hanging 3 tilapia on a tree on a rope. It's like they're one step ahead. It's like, well, here's your deer, freshly killed. You know, that's just the way I looked at it when I got there. I thought it was kind of comical. It's like, oh, nice timing there. Whatever put that there, right at this exact spot where I suggested we put some fish. But I just chalked it up as, man, somebody shot the deer off grounds, and they can run with 2/3 of their blood gone for a long time, and then just flop over and die. And that's why there was a lack of blood. It's already drained all out. But anyway, that's just the kind of weird stuff that happens. There was a dead dog in my garage when I first took this guy on renting the place.
Matthew, I'm telling you, you're not selling the place to people that want to come down and spend $120 to go hang out. You're not.
The $120 gives them the full year. $30, $35 a day, or $45 for a week. So however you want to put your little package in. I'm not going to charge you nothing, but I mean, that's to be in the park legally. You can do that.
Holy smokes! Well, I'll tell you what. We're gonna have to. We might have to do. Have you back on and do for our Patreon page. Maybe we'll get into your paranormal stuff. That I bet you got some good stuff to share. But I appreciate you coming on and going through a lifetime's worth of experiences for sure. And there's so much interesting stuff here. I hope everybody really does take some notes and go do some of their own investigation. So,
yep.
Although I don't recommend going into West Virginia. Let's just stay out of West Virginia.
It's pretty vast, and there's not very many. It's odd. Like, wow.
So well, Matthew, thanks again, and like I said, we'll get together again and do something with your paranormal stories because I bet those are pretty interesting too. So, but
it's a nice platform to let it all out. You know, I'm glad that there's places like this, and I've been waiting for the Bigfoot and UFO world to get to this stage to be mentioning any of this crap, because then I'll sound extra nuts if there's nothing to compare it to. But now it's like almost mainstream to let all this stuff out, and it's accumulated to this point to where this all happened to work out just right. So yeah, if anybody has any questions or wants to get a hold of me, they can find me on Facebook as Matthew Bradley. I don't even know what my cover page is. I might have a black hat on or something. I don't know. Profile picture. UFO or my Jesus Christ. My YouTube page is Bigfoot Littlefoot, and it doesn't have a plethora of information on it. You know, like I said, it has 3 videos, maybe 2 shorts. So I think there's a stick structure, and then the tree that was pulled across the trail as I had just went down the trail, went back to the top of the hill to get service and come back down. Got the feeling, it's like, oh man, something's down here. I get down there, there's a damn tree in the trail. It's like, okay, I just chalk that up as, yep, put it on the map. Tree down, pointing this direction. So, but yeah, if anybody has any questions or wants to give me a hard time or whatever, let's discuss some stuff. You know, I'm here to debate. I'm not saying I'm 100% right on any of this stuff. It's just what I've witnessed, and
no, I think that's a really fair and open-minded way to approach it for sure. So,
well, thanks, man.
So I appreciate it. Stay safe out there, and we'll be in touch.
All right, over and out.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.